let's get into today's show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. Welcome back to another episode. Shawn, how are you today, sir?
You know how I'm doing, Stephen. How dare you ask me that question? No, I'm doing
right
well.
up.
Yeah, there you go. No, I'm doing well. I was just telling Ciara off air. Just one of those days as an agent, you know. Listen, being in insurance industry is awesome. Being an agent is awesome. But you have those days. And today was one of those days I had to have not one, not two, not three, but like 4 really tough conversations about rec letters and fixing hot water heaters that are older than 15 years old and claims. So I'm fighting through it, though, you know.
The beauty, right? The beauty of where we are. The good days and the bad. Well, everybody, we got a great episode for you today. This is another guest that I met down at the IOA conference. I know Shawn and her have a relationship, but super excited to bring her on here and talk about what she has going on. So welcome Ciara Gravier, who is the founder of the Bunker Insurance and Risk Management. So welcome to the show. We appreciate you taking your time. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here. Thanks. You know, we have a bond that I think many have, but once they make it, they forget how hard it is. You know, the scratch. Yeah. Starting scratch, it's something, I don't know why it's my 3rd time. Like, I don't know what, like, I'm a sucker. This is the last, though. I'm not doing it again. But yeah,
that's right.
This shows people what you're made of, really. If you can do this and thrive through it, we're a special breed for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you start by introducing yourself and telling people, you know, how you got to the 3rd time and where you're at and what brought you here today.
I'm a sucker for punishment. No, you know, the short story is my parents at 49 left corporate America. My mom had worked for Equifax all of her life. It was her only job, and they laid her off, or they fired her. And my dad was working for UPS, and they had just had enough with working for people. They wanted to, you know, crazy. My dad had never owned a business, never sold insurance, and decided I'm going to open an insurance agency. We went the Allstate route, and we ended up having 2 locations. We did really well. We enjoyed our time with Allstate, even though down here in South Florida, you couldn't write the auto. It was, monoline auto as far as Allstate products. But when we were on all the trips, we realized, wait a minute, everyone has an independent on the side, the Allstate agents. And so when we figured it out, my dad was downstairs with Allstate, I was upstairs, I got my license, and I opened up my independent, and then we sold the Allstate offices. He joined me, so did the rest of the family. At that independent agency, we had it for about 12 years, and we sold it in 2018. And so my dad had always told me, you know, you got to have a plan B in life. You got to just, you know, even while we had the agency, have a plan B, get your designations. So that way, if we ever do sell or something happens, you know, you just never know. You can, you know, if you have to go get a job with a carrier, you can get a really good job and you'll be good. Yeah. And so that's what I did as far as the designations. And so then when we sold, they retired, and I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? I guess it's my turn to just, you know, do that plan. I had a plan B, and then he was like, no, you did it. You helped us, you know, work. You gave me your youth, and now it's my turn, you know, to help you do the same for you and your family. And so that's how we got to the 3rd time. But the 3rd time is November of 2019 is when we opened. So I took a year off, and the industry changed completely in that year. And then COVID hit in March of 2020. So it's definitely much different than the other times.
But yeah, okay. So 3 times. Wow. All right. So that's quite the journey. Well, now, listen, you can could tell you went through it a couple of times, because on this 3rd time you killed it. I mean, the bunker, like one of the things I did when I opened up my agency was, you know, I did a little reconnaissance work, so to speak, and I look at other agencies' websites and just kind of get an idea of what everybody's doing, and you know, it just gives me some ideas, and I get to see how far I am behind on certain things. And you've done a really good job of, you know, I feel like there's a lot of people in our industry that do a good job of branding themselves personally, but not so much on the business side. I feel like you do a really good job of branding yourself personally and on the business side. And yeah, and when I looked at your website, like I love how it's tailored to a more consultative approach as opposed to just leading with price, which we always talk about in the Killing Commercial Game. And you know, it doesn't say get quote here, get quote now, you know, call us now, all this stuff. It's, you know, request a consultation. You know, it's a much different approach, and it probably attracts the clientele that you're looking for. And I'm assuming that's the reason you did that. But Ted, tell us a little bit how you came up with that process and how you know, decided on that design of the website and the brand, and kind of dive into that a little bit.
So you're right. We had done with Allstate, we didn't really try to differentiate ourselves. Well, we didn't know anything about insurance or owning a business, right? So we wanted the camouflage. That was on purpose. And then when we went the independent route, we didn't know anything about the independent side, right? We had only sold Allstate. In South Florida, we had knowledge of like having choices for homeowners insurance, right? Because Allstate didn't write the home, so we would have several carriers that are native to Florida that would write. So we had some concept of what that was on that side, but we really had that's totally different with all lines, and especially with Allstate, we didn't really do a lot of commercial. Our hands were tied as far as that commercial auto, but not the casualty side, or much less the property. So I think that we intentionally tried to fit in so bad, like so hard, or hide who we were with Allstate, and then we did the same thing in the second round because we didn't want people to know that we were new to the independent side. That now that I had all this experience under my belt, I knew that I wanted to create a different name. I wanted to create something that would connect with people. Yeah. Our independent agency name was nothing special. It was like a made-up name. It wasn't anything, like, it didn't mean anything. We couldn't build a story around it. We couldn't do anything with it. So that's one of the challenges. We tried to do a rebrand before, maybe about 3 years before we sold, and it was very difficult for us to do and change the name. And we had bought an agency. We were trying to come up with something to merge them, and it was difficult for us. And we realized, okay, well, I knew that if I ever did it again, I wanted it to mean something, and I wanted someone to feel something when they heard the name. So I knew that, and I knew that I didn't want the price shopper. I knew I wanted to build something different. We only do commercial insurance. I don't do any personal lines because of that. Yeah. I just knew that I wanted to run an agency that was lean, that was, I guess, hand chosen with who I worked with. Like, I'm not saying I sit up here and decline people that, you know, come to me without a referral. I'm not exclusive. Yeah. But I am pretty picky with who I work with as far as like them valuing my advice. Like we were just talking before we started recording, right? You know, a restaurant. She at this time of a claim, she literally was like, "I'm so happy you're on our team. We where would we be?" That's awesome. You know, that is what makes me feel good at night. That is what makes me to know that I just protected a business that opened 10 days ago. Yeah. From their first EPLI claim. That's powerful to me. That matters to me, and that makes it important. So that's kind of why I go the consultation route. It's proven that a good, strong brand repels a certain part of the population and attracts another, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to repel the price shopper. Sure, some still come through, right? Some answer the questions right. They know the game, but usually we can sniff them out. Yeah, and you know, price is obviously on the top of everyone's mind. I'm not saying we don't talk about it, but there has to be something outside of price. So we always
Of course, yeah, totally. And what do you think from on the commercial side of things? And I'm assuming part of the reason about the personal lines, besides the price shopping thing, is like Florida's got to be the toughest place to write personal lines. I would imagine. Yeah, it's a disaster.
We lost 7 carriers last year.
How many did you say? 7?
7.
Wow.
Insolvency. So, I mean, I sit on the board of our local association of the Broward chapter of the LAIA, and what my fellow board members are going through, rewriting books into Citizens, which is the state, for less than half the commission, it's terrible.
Yeah, so I have no right to, at the beginning of this conversation, say I had some tough phone calls. But let's talk about the commercial line side of things real quick, because I think this can relate to scratch agents as well. And something I'm walking my producer through currently is trying to help him find his niche. Mm-hmm. So do you have a niche, Ciara? And if you do, what is it and how'd you find it?
So I don't have a niche per se as far as like specific, like you had said, you know, you do hospitality, like I don't have one because again, South Florida problems. I have some issues with getting carrier appointments. So I've kind of made my niche to go after things that wouldn't fit in the admitted market.
I gotcha.
So kind of stuff that needs the consultative approach and needs the risk management solutions. That's one of the reasons why I joined Killing Commercial, because I knew I wanted to build it. I just didn't know how. Yeah. I had always envisioned this version of the bunker when we were starting, but there was a piece missing, and that's the piece. I just didn't know how to do the risk management part. I didn't know how to have those those conversations. I didn't know what questions to ask, like those types of things, and that's the main reason why I joined Killing Commercial. It was the missing piece of what I had envisioned for the bunker.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things you filled out when just a few questions we sent you for the show was about, you know, finding a mentor. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we talked a lot about that. I don't even think through my scratch agency journey with leaving the family business and kind of the emotional things that came with that, it was like my mentor, Mike Crowley, and, you know, a few others along the way kind of pulled me through that. I don't think I'd be here if it wasn't for that. You know, talk about that process, because you've been through it a couple different times, and I'm sure there's different mentors that you've leaned on through your I mean, you talked about Killing Commercial in that sense, but talk about kind of what the mentorship means to you as you're going through for the third time of this scratch agency journey here.
Stop reminding her.
Yeah. So I you know, I'm very fortunate to have worked with my dad always, and my mom. My mom, with this one, she was like, I'm done, guys. I'm retiring. Licensed. She's like, I'm not calling him anybody. Like, don't even call me. So now, like, she's our lunch lady. We tell her she's our lunch lady. But, you know, I've been just very fortunate that, you know, my dad, without having experience of owning a business, he just had, you know, he was never a quitter. He just won. He didn't stop until he won. So that honestly has helped me, and he's working with me now, you know, and I have bad days and I have good days, and when I'm in the lows of this industry, you know, he's there to remind me of why we started, that we can do it. Everything worth having is hard. Like, he is my number one mentor, but you know, we were also in our little world here in South Florida running an agency. We would go to the conferences. We always would do that. You know, I went to one of Chris Paradiso's conferences many years ago in Hartford. Like, he's always believed in education and being innovative and learning from people that are doing it better. So that's kind of what I've always known, but there was still a gap. There was still a gap in, like, we always just knew what we knew, right? We're not quitters, but we also just needed more. We needed growth. And that's where he's actually the one that found David and Killing Commercial. And David always tells the story that he kind of stalked him. My dad didn't take no for an answer because he doesn't quit. So, you know, after stalking David a little bit, you know, we got in. And David really has changed the trajectory of my agency, my career, not just with Killing Commercial, but, you know, the opportunities that he's presented me with to be able to step up, right, and force myself to be uncomfortable, force myself to do things that I would have never ventured out to do for myself. I mean, I would have never, ever done some of these things, and if it wasn't because someone extended a hand and said, you're capable, you can do it, you should do it, that I wouldn't have done it. Mm. So for me, that is powerful. You know, just the power of opportunity. If you are in a position of helping, of allowing, giving someone just literally a hand to believe in themselves, to step up, to rise to an occasion, to be a better version of themselves, you should do it. And most people will rise and become the best versions of themselves. And that's what I'm experiencing right now. I mean, I think so, as far as like for my 20 years in this industry. But I mean, that's because of, what David has given me.
That's awesome. I love what you said about your father and how basically you watched him work hard, and that just it's making me think back. It's funny. I gave a presentation this morning at my BNI chapter, and I talked about how I was raised by a single mother, and she worked 2 jobs, and she was never the type of person to be like, "Hey, you have to work hard. Make sure you work hard. Make sure you're organized." She never even brought up work, but me watching her work hard is still motivation for me today, and it's just. I feel like having a parent and raising a kid now, like I feel like, man, these are some of the lessons I want to make sure I instill in my little girl, So I just think that's an awesome lesson.
And that's amazing too, that like, I don't have any children, so I'm not faced with those things, but I love to see, and I think that I think our industry is changing as far as, the landscape of it being, it's still heavily male dominated, but I do believe it's changing. And I think that, I think that our generation and the one before, like my dad had raised me to never be any different than my brother. Like I'm not less, I don't deserve less because I'm a girl. Like he was just like, you could probably do more.
That's that's awesome.
So that's a powerful message to also instill in your daughter. Like there's no difference. Sky's the limit.
Good point.
One of the coolest things out of everything you just said, I think, that I took away was that your dad found the Killing Commercial program. Because and my story is complete opposite. You always hear the kids are trying to implement new things, and the roadblocks are either the parents and the family agencies or the presidents or whatever it is, and that's what makes those things. I think that's so cool that he went out and found it and said, "Hey, this is something we should do." That's amazing.
He
that's
is
a great
so
point.
Innovative. I mean, when he sold the agency, he went and got his real estate license at 70. He was like, "I'm not gonna retire. Like, why would I retire? I'm so young." Got his real estate license.
Awesome.
Yeah, and he's the one that came up with the name of the bunker. Like when we were sitting down thinking about it, like he's the one that like solidified it with the thought process. He's great. He's got a very young, innovative mind, and it's a gift, really.
That's
He's
awesome.
the visionary.
Yeah, he is. Yep. Like if we were, I mean, it's 2 of us, but if we're our version of Traction, yes, he would be for sure the visionary. For sure.
So it's just the 2 of you in the agency?
Yeah, it's us and a VA. I do have a VA.
Nice.
Right now, and if I'm going to be honest with you guys, I think that one of my weaknesses, because I've always worked in a family environment, I guess I had a job at the mall when I was in high school, right? And a job at a veterinarian office where I worked the front desk until, we started the agency. But I think that my biggest weakness is holding people accountable. So I feel like for me to build a team, I still have to do so much work on myself on being a leader.
Yeah.
That it's very difficult for me to do to even
Is it hard to delegate?
It's very hard for me to delegate. It's very hard for me to train. I don't know. I feel like I'm not a good trainer. And I think that it's very hard just for me. I think it's because I'm not a mom. I really do believe it's because I'm not a mom, because when you're a mother, you have patience and you explain things a million times to children. Like I feel for me, it's just accountability is, which I know I'm wrong and I'm working on it, but I feel like accountability is almost like babysitting. Yeah. And if you're getting paid to do your job, you should just do your job. But I know that that's wrong. Like I don't agree with it, but I think it's because I've never worked in like a corporate environment, and I've never really been held accountable from superiors either.
Yeah.
So
well, I mean, the fact that you realize that, I mean, you're going to solve that problem,
Oh, for sure. Well, I think that's interesting to talk about from a scratch agency journey, right? In the first 6 months, the first year, you are the only person to hold yourself accountable. I was the only person to get my ass out of bed this morning and come into the agency and make it happen today. What are, with what you just talked about self-accountability and things, like what are some things that you have used that have helped you in that regard as you're growing the business?
So what I'm trying to do, I'm just going to tell you all the things that are wrong with me now. I'm also kind of just like just a very, I guess whimsical person to an extent as far as like my regular life. And again, I really do believe it's because I don't have children. Like when you're parents, you guys know, you have a schedule. Your kids have to be places. You have to teach them how to be responsible. Like it's just myself, my husband, and my dog. Like I'm not molding human beings, right? And I think that that's powerful, that you guys have that responsibility, that you have to show them a good example. I'm just living for myself. So I actually think it's a detriment for me, but I'm working on just formalizing a routine, really, a routine of starting my day exercising, obviously to lose some weight, but really just for mental clarity, energy, releasing the stress, that totally. Type of stuff. Like I'm really just trying to stick to a routine. I'm reading more than I ever have. I never really was a reader, and I'm on my 4th book for this year.
Wow.
I'm really trying to make it, and I'm like a reader where I have Audible, and then I have the hard copy book. I have it read to me so that I can, since Spanish is my first language, like sometimes I feel like I misinterpret the intentions behind the words if I read it to myself. So I like to have it read to me, and I think that is really also something that's been helping me just become a better version of myself, really.
Yeah, I think the routine is, I probably take it a little to the extreme, but like I love my routine so much that when I get thrown off, it kind of disrupts my day a little bit, and that's probably where it's not healthy. But the working out is oh my god, that keeps me clear during the day. Like you said, the stress, the energy. Yeah. You check off that box in the morning. You feel good. It gives you a little confidence,
Yes, and I have a standing desk, and I bought myself a walking pad. Like this morning, I got to the office really, really early. I feel like at 5:30, and I walked for an hour before 7, and I was just working. Okay, like
was it you? Right. Was it you on Killing Commercial? I saw somebody. They were like.
No, that's not me, not yet. But
that wasn't you.
It will be. It will be. Next call.
It's so good because we're sitting so long. We sit for so long.
It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah.
No, I can find myself too. I do the same thing. I get up early and work out in the morning, and if there's a morning that I don't do that, it throws my whole day off completely. Yeah. Because it's just like, once you find that thing that works, whether it's the gym or getting up and reading 10 pages of a book or checking your emails before you're opening your AMS or whatever the systems are that you're finding that works, once you throw yourself off, for me, it's like same as you, Shawn. It's like, okay, I'm all over the place at this point.
So then imagine when you build a team and you can't control what they're doing, right? And then they throw you off of your routine. We got to learn how to, adapt.
Yep. It always, Stephen, how many times does it come back to processes and procedures? Yeah. Yep. My God. It always comes back to that.
And so, I'm in the process of building that out for myself because, again, we were successful. We had a great agency. We sold it. Great. But it was run like a family. We didn't have things documented. We didn't, the 7 people that worked there kind of just did things the way they always did it. And, you had to put it in AMS 360 or else, you would be in trouble. Like, document everything. But there was no formalized process. So all of that is new to me, and I'm trying to build it out. But it is a challenge for me.
It's hard. I'm in the same boat. My agency that I came from, my family agency was 150 years old, and it's like everybody, the people that were working there have all been there for 20 years plus. So when I came, it was like, this is the way we do it. Here's the way we do it. Yeah, exactly. And like, you knew that, to your point, if it wasn't this way, that someone was going to say something. It had to be this way. And now it's like me. I can hear Crowley right now in my ear about documenting my processes and the Loom videos and everything so that when I have that first employee, here's everything that's taken care of. Because I know what to do up here. I know what I'm doing. Or if I miss the rules and go off a little bit and skip, step 6 and go on to 7, right now it's not a problem. I can figure it out when it's just me. But to your point, when you're building that team, when you bring on the first VA or bring on that CSR, whatever it may be, you want to have that foundation set.
Yeah, totally. And it's hard. It's hard to figure out where do you document it, how are you going to document it, and then you do a couple and then you don't like it, and then you start over. It's almost like what is that, paralysis by analysis? Yeah. Like it doesn't end.
But then, that comes right back to what we're talking about self-accountability.
Yeah.
especially if it's, when it's just us in the agency. If there's not the self accountability to do it, to even just get yourself used to doing that process every step of the way, that time, the foundation is not going to be built as strong. I'd be curious, what's the vision for you for the bunker? What does the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years look like for the bunker?
I definitely want to stick commercial. I did personal lines for so long, and I feel like commercial allows me to run an agency that is flexible, that is profitable without the overhead of having to have so much staff. I mean, my phone rings here probably 3 times a day, if that. One of them is, somebody trying to sell me something. So, I mean, it's business people tend to email. So even when I go on vacation, it's not a problem. I check I work for the first 3 hours of the day, and then I'm fine. I have my out of office. Like I'm not saying I want a lifestyle agency. I think that's what it is right now in this phase that I'm in. But my goal, I have a number where I would sell. It's probably going to take me, 7 to 10 years to get there. With everything that's going on down here, the obstacles that we have of just being in Florida. But I'm okay with that. I'm only 40, so I'm turning 40 this year. I have time.
See, I'm curious. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. I'm curious. Just because you do commercial lines, only if a business client asks about personal, I'm curious, how do you handle that?
Yeah, I just tell them that, we're not generalist agents.
A guy, David Carruthers, down the block who can do your homeowners with Citizens.
Right, yeah. I specifically email David at Blue. No. I've actually created some 2 partnerships here locally of people that only do personal lines. So we usually just refer each other, and they take great care of my clients, and I take care of theirs. So it actually works perfect. Just for reference too, as far as when you're starting from scratch, the networking piece is so difficult. You feel like you need to go everywhere, be everything. Yeah. It is so time consuming. It is exhausting. And one of the best things I've done, which I think can help anybody, because sometimes it's almost so obvious that you don't even think about it. But I've actually partnered with someone that works at she worked for a different agency, but that agency got acquired by Brown & Brown. And so, they have a threshold that they don't get paid if the policy is not over a certain amount. So, she sends me everything that's under her threshold. Well, her threshold's $5,000 in revenue. I would, I'm working on 3 of her referrals right now. So think out of the box when it comes to networking. It's not just,
That's a great point.
Outside referral partners of the industry. Find people like myself, right? I am a good referral partner for a personal lines agent.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. I would send trucking to someone. Those types of strategic.
That's a really good point.
I think you just said thinking outside of the box for networking. Also, just make the calls and do the introductions. Shawn and I have been holding each other accountable on a lot of things, and one of them last week was to get in front of 5 mortgage lenders for the personal side of things, and this one has just probably, out of my new business so far for the year, is probably 75% is from this one guy that I just met January 1. But he had a problem because he couldn't find an agent that would get him binders quick. He had a problem that I was able to solve, and all I did was call and introduce myself, and here we are. So just get out there, get in front of people. Segueing into that, let's talk about the local podcast that you have, because I think that's a really good tool of local networking. I have one here locally that I'm going to be starting back up soon, but how's that worked for you, and what's the concept behind that?
Yeah, that's actually one of the reasons why I started it. Well, I went to the Better Agency Conference last year in April, and they did a panel, and Brandon Smith was running the panel, and there was a couple people on it, but James Jenkins was on the panel, and somebody in the audience had asked him, what effect did having a podcast have on his business, even though it's an industry podcast. It's not generally for the public, right? It's for us. And he was like, even though it's not for the public, it is astronomical what the impact it's had on his business. And so Brandon Smith had asked the crowd, how many people in the audience have a podcast? And there was probably about 200-300 people in the room. And only 11 people raised their hand.
Wow.
And I was like, and my dad had been telling me for probably 9 months, you should start a podcast. And I'm like, you don't even listen to podcasts. Like, what do you? He's like, you should start one. I'm like, what am I going to talk about? Doesn't matter. You should start one. And I came back from that thing and I was like, well, I guess I'm starting one.
That's awesome.
Brandon was like, you guys think, it sounds like it's oversaturated, but if you do it right and you do it local for your business, it is going to make you an authority. So I came back, I bought all of the equipment. I ripped the Band-Aid, like behind me. You can see I have to buy all the equipment to force myself, right? Mm-hmm. That's how I hold myself accountable to do it. Yeah. I spent some money, so now I have to do it. And so my thought process behind it was, all right, so I'm young for being in business. And I thought, okay, well, I want to meet business owners. I want to meet successful business owners. So instead of joining these groups, like I used to be in a BNI when I was at our other agency in the personal line spot, but the commercial line spot, it's not really what I'm looking for. You don't get those referrals that you want.
I agree.
So I was like, well, I'm going to create a space where people can come and talk about themselves and their businesses and give back to the community of business owners that we have locally, where we can offer value, where I'm kind of bridging the gap. I thought this is exactly how I explained it to my dad. I wanted there to be like a bridge in between the successful and the people starting, right? Because in our industry, everyone is so open to help. Everyone is so willing to help you. I mean, it's the most friendliest, giving industry that I've heard of and that I've been a part of. I don't know that other industries are the same. So in my mind, I said, okay, well, I can go the route of interviewing. I mean, I know a bajillion business owners, right? Whether it's insurance or not, we're all business owners and we all have different struggles in our businesses.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, I have access to this community of insurance agents that are business owners. But what if I did it locally where I could meet people that I want to meet, that I want to be in front of, and have them come and share their stories, their failures, their successes with the community, but really targeting newer, young business owners in business, not necessarily age. So whenever I tell someone about it or invite them on the show, I really just want them to feel compelled to be honest, and just share their struggles and how did they overcome it? What was their mindset? What were their failures? How did they do it? So I actually have episode 9 tomorrow to be recorded, and one of the things that I'm doing to kind of get more people is asking my current guest, hey, can you introduce me to someone that you think would be a good guest?
Yep.
So that's what I'm doing to get through, because some of these people know people of where I want to be, right? That I would have no other access to. And so I was talking to my dad about it last week, and I was like, honestly, at this point, this just might be my networking, really. Because if I have to sit here and do it 3 times a week with someone in my office for an hour, I get one-on-one time, we bond, we laugh, we have this time together where that person probably would not pick up my cold call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
100%.
And now I have them in my office for an hour. We've created, some sort of relationship in an hour, and I'm going to promote them on social. And at some point, they're going to get a renewal. They're going to have an issue with their agent or a claim, and they're going to say, I know who I'm going to call.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love that.
I really, and I've honestly been having way more fun than I thought I was. I made my first mistake last week. I was interviewing a workers' comp defense attorney. He works on the insurance agency side, and my camera ran out of memory. I split up when it was done.
The SD card, yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, I don't know what it ended, but I was like, thank God I record the audio separate. I was like, listen, this is it's just, we got to do it. We're not going to do it again. So I recorded the audio separate. We'll just move it forward. And I learned.
Yeah.
I'm literally I set up the camera. I sit down.
Been there.
I'm doing it all by myself.
Yeah.
So, it's like.
I think the local podcast thing is a game changer, at least. So when I was at my previous agency, I had one. We're starting it back up at the beginning of next month, just because it worked so well. And I'm mainly personal lines, and it opened a ton of doors for personal and commercial. But you sit down with a business owner, like you said, in the area, and they love just talking about themselves and their business and their story, and you're building that relationship. I am currently quoting a local business owner who's very successful. He has like 60 rental properties in the area. And last year he was like the local spokesperson for my competing agency down the street. And he came on the show, and we built a relationship. And then when I went off on my own, he kind of was following me, and he called me and was like, "Hey, I want to give you a shot on everything. I see what you're doing, and I like, we have a good relationship. I'd like to support you." And it was like, but to your point, if I cold called him and said, let me come in and talk about your business insurance, your properties, this and that, you probably would have been nothing. He was just on the commercial for the other local guy. Right. But I've had him on the podcast. We sat down, we had a conversation, and opened that door. So I think it's a great opportunity.
And honestly, sorry, Shawn, but I just wanted to touch on something you said. I feel like at the One City World Tour conference that I was just at in Texas, there was a gentleman that presented. His name is David Foster. He's in Alabama. And he got up and he spoke, and it was so good, because it was so just refreshing to hear him just say, guys, this industry is not that hard. It's about relationships. Like, it doesn't matter what CRM you have. It doesn't matter if you have an onboarding campaign or not. He writes politicians' campaigns, DNOs, like the DNO, the campaign insurance.
Talk about niche.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And he actually talks about it on the IGP podcast, and that's where I had heard him first. And he just talks about how he didn't know what he wasn't that guy, but he had one relationship of someone that was looking for it. He said yes to the opportunity. He learned it, and now he's that guy. And it's not someone in New York in a big firm. It's not someone near DC, near all the politicians. It's him in Alabama that does it.
Crazy.
And so he's just like, it's relationships. And I came back from that conference, and I said, I just sat while I was there, and I bound a $12,000 revenue account that came to me from a business attorney. Last week, I bound another one that was $4,000 in revenue from her. And I said to myself, why am I going to all these networking groups? Why am I chasing all these things and all these bunches of people when I could just deepen my relationship and get 5 of her? And if I got 5 of her, and I got 5 of my insurance agent friend, who's also one of my mentors that I eat breakfast with once a week, that has a threshold with Brown & Brown, I mean, I would have more business. I would need to hire someone.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's relationships. That's it. Deep-seated relationships. Not wide cast nets. Deep relationships.
And you just got to double down on that, too. Have you read the book Giftology?
No.
You're going to check it out. Shawn and I just finished it. We sent it to each other and read it. And it talks about, like, just building the relationships, doubling down. And even if you think, like you said, you have a referral partner, you just said that you get together once a week, stay in front of them. Mm-hmm. Just like the little things can make such a huge difference. One thing you said I wanted to pivot on real quick about that you just touched on, but talk to, and I may be selfishly asking this for myself, but talk to the agents that are mostly personal lines that want to grow more in the commercial space, because you had your previous agencies, you said you were mostly personal, and then I think for some of us it can look like such an uphill, battle. What advice would you give to them that they want to get more involved with commercial or more comfortable with having those conversations, or what advice, since you've gone through that, would you give to those people listening?
So the first thing I would say is get your CIC. Get your designation. I use mine for multiple reasons. The education piece, I got mine when I was at my other agency. I finished my CRM during COVID. I think that obviously you learn, you get the knowledge, but for me, it's a confidence boost to know that you've put yourself through the work and you were able to pass those classes, which they're not easy. These questions are long form questions. It's not multiple choice. You have to apply what you learned in 2 days. Like it is a challenge, but not only does it give you confidence in yourself, but I also believe that it does something. And I talk about this in my presentation on branding yourself and packaging yourself differently. And I think that when someone finds me on LinkedIn, let's say, right, they see my picture and they say, okay, well, she's not that old, right? Like they know I'm young for being an agency owner, being in this industry, right? We're the newer faces of this industry. Nobody our age was here 10 years ago.
Right.
So I think that it does something in their mind and in their guts as far as, oh, well, she's done the work. If she has like these PhD letters after her name, she's done some work. So she looks young, but she's not new in the industry. Mm-hmm. And I think that just, for me personally, it gives me confidence in myself.
Sure.
To know that, like, okay, well, they already think I deserve to be there. That's half the battle. And that's what David teaches us in Killing Commercial too, right? Like the prospect, I think it's in his intro of his podcast. Like they made time to meet with you. It's because they believe you deserve to be there. The only one that doesn't is you. I would say 70% of this game is a confidence game in yourself. And the reality is, don't be, it's funny because this gentleman, David, spoke about it in his presentation where he said, don't let the size of a premium, the size of an account scare you. So the majority of the times, there's nobody waiting for you at that meeting asking for you to explain what waiver of subrogation is. Like, they're just not going to ask you one of those really, really deep insurance questions, right? That may scare you, or explain to me how business income works. Like, they're just not doing that. So I think that for me, what's helped me is pivoting it from an insurance conversation to a risk management conversation. And that's why the price game doesn't work for me and the style of agency I want to build. Because if you want to just, in the absence, the price only matters in the absence of value. Right? Because if I'm providing you value and I'm providing you something that can save your business and allow you to sleep better at night, okay, if it's $5,000 more, you'll pay it because you feel like it's real and that I'm honest and that I'm doing the right thing for you.
Yep.
So, I would say just don't be afraid of it. Learn your exclusions. Don't just sling insurance. It's not the same thing as, quoting a home on a portal where it spits out a price, especially when you're dealing with E&S stuff, which is where I mostly play. Like, I presented a proposal today to a roofer. I had one quote that was $19,700 and one quote that was $54,000. What do you think the difference is? There's major differences in that. And I told him what they were. It was a referral from my friend that works at that agency. I educated him. I think I almost educate too much, and I might lose some sales that way. Yeah. But it's how I sleep at night. Like, I can't sell you a policy that excludes you putting tarps on roofs in emergency situations. When you're a roofer in Florida where there's hurricanes, and that's the first thing you would do. You would run out and tarp any house you found.
And if that prospect doesn't see the value in that, that's okay.
That's okay.
And that wraps on to the last note I had here we talked about handpicking people. Like, it's fair for both parties.
Right.
We're not the place for you because of X, Y, and Z. It seems that this is the way that you want to shop for your insurance, whatever it might be. It makes sense for us as the agents. It makes sense for the consumer. If we take the time to educate them, like you just said with that roofer, if you take the time to educate them and they still don't see the value, it's not going to be a good partnership for you, and it's not going to be a good partnership for them. And it is okay.
I told him, when you're dealing with a risk management agency that just finances your program via your insurance, it's different. You're going to send me a contract that you're bidding on, and I'm going to tell you, you have this already in place. No, this is what you're missing. Work this figure into your bid. If you have to increase your limits, if you have to get this, like those services, that type of hand-holding, especially he's a new roofer branching off from another corporation, you're just starting. Why would you start off on the wrong foot? And I told him, that comes at no charge to you. Your charge is me doing your insurance. And then I am a partner of yours that you have access to when you need it.
And if you're listening to this right now and thinking, well, that's on the commercial side thing, you're wrong too, because I had that same situation, but obviously different personal lines. They brought me we were looking at their new home. They brought me their auto. I looked at it. They were the state minimum limits, and we said, this is why we do not write the state minimum limits. Let me walk through it. Did a video proposal, walk through it. The kid called me 10 minutes after. He viewed the videos that I've had. Nobody's ever told me that. I had no idea. Can we go higher? Yeah, we can go higher. Sold that policy on Monday, and he sent me 2 people because I talked to them, and they think they're underinsured, and they want to talk to you about it. And that's just That's just a personal lines auto policy. So the concept can work whether it's personal or commercial.
The position of being an advisor, it could be in health insurance, it could be in life insurance.
Yep.
It's a salesperson or an advisor. Which one do you want to be? I like the advisor role. I don't like my brother actually works for a pretty large agency down here, and he loves playing in the condo space. I don't, because the premiums are great. They're fat checks. I get it, but they're also changing board members every 2 years, and then you lose it. There's zero value you can add to that relationship. It is strictly a price-driven transaction, and I don't like it. Like, that's the beauty of what I'm doing. I get to build it how I want, and I think that's the piece that I'm enjoying the most.
Oh, you and me both. Absolutely.
Yeah. It takes longer when you do that, right? It takes longer, but at least I get to work. I mean, I probably have about 146 clients, and I get to be available for them, and I just love, it's not, they're business people. They're not calling my cell phone. They're, they're emailing me at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's cool. But, I'm really enjoying that piece of not having to write something because I have to pay my bills, even though I do have to pay my bills. But sometimes I just say, no, it's going to take me away from doing what I want. It's going to take me away from going to lunch with or hosting an episode with someone I've been dying to meet.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
So that's kind of where I am with that. But back to your original question, real quick, I would say get educated, build your confidence, and don't be intimidated by the prospects. Mm-hmm. The majority of them don't know not even a quarter of what we know, Yeah. I really do believe not only is it a relationship game, it's a confidence it's confidence in yourself to win at the commercial. Even the cold calling, right? People that are really confident have no problem cold calling because they can handle the rejection. They don't take it personal. Even in that, sphere, it matters.
My boy Shawn over here crushing 10 cold calls a day this week, right, Shawn?
That's right.
Or else I gotta drive down to Long Island and wake him up.
How did it go, Shawn?
It's going well. It's going well. I would say every 40, 50 calls, I'm booking one appointment, basically.
That's great.
Yeah, and I had the more complicated script, and I really had to dumb it down to a much more simpler, authentic script for myself. It just flowed better with my personality. And once I did that, way better. I went from like 1 out of 100 to literally
that's great.
About half. Yeah. So
did you build like an ideal prospect list that you're calling? Like,
I use Insurance X States. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's in Florida, but
I've heard of them. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, it's a program where basically I can list the type of business I want to go after, when their renewal date is, and what carrier they're with now. So I could literally put, hey, I want to go after contractors in New York that do over $5 million in revenue that are with AmTrust or some other company that I know they're not getting an annual dividend. Mm-hmm. And then that's kind of, I can add that to my pitch, and it just, and then I have the renewal, I know what carrier they're with, and I know they're not getting a dividend, and it just, it makes the conversation so much easier,
Yeah, that's great. That's kind of what we do too. We have a list. We actually just, we check it against, so the state publishes the workers' comp days.
Yes.
Even the agency that they're with. We know what agency they're with.
That's cool.
We're able to, we run it through the NCCI and find if they have a mod. I don't pull every single one, but if I see that it says $6, okay, then I know they have a mod. They're paying over $5,000, worth calling. So we put them in the we keep that contact to cold call, and then all those class codes, the 8810s and all those things, we just get rid of them because it's not
20 cents per $100 of payroll.
It's not who we want to write, right? So that's kind of what we do, and then we always just go in with that as well, the mod and the safety and all that good stuff that we've learned in Killing Commercial. But
there's a lot of money there.
That's good.
Yeah. Now cold calling is where it's at, and when you run the numbers.
It is.
How many calls do I have to make to get how many proposals, to get how many sales? I mean, when you start really adding those numbers, you're like, holy crap, if I did 25 a day, like I could easily add 50,000 plus revenue. You know what I mean? It's pretty wild.
What I'll say that's challenging too as a scratch agency is not having X dates, right? So this is my third year kind of, right? So now I finally have a cushion of people that I've been speaking to.
Yeah.
So like January, I called a renewal that is in June. They're a disaster with claims. Called, and I'm like, hey, it's time. Let me start working on it now. Let me review it. We had spoken last year, whatever. I mean, last year it was a $30,000 revenue account.
Nice.
And and she was so happy. She was like, we need so much help. Please, please, please tell me what you need. And I said, I sent her a list, and I did not include your policy deck pages, right? Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to walk in there and tell her, you don't have an insurance problem, you have a risk management problem. You guys have a severe risk management problem. Yeah. But, and that was from my calls. So being scratch and not having those X dates it hurts for a while. But once you make it to, that's why it's so valuable what you're doing. Because if they say, no, not this year, next year, okay, well, next year you have 10 more people to call in January.
Exactly.
Exactly.
All right, Stephen, you want to wrap us up?
Well, yeah, we always have this question. We're going to have to tweak it a little bit here because this could be your fourth time. But if you were to wake up tomorrow and be challenged with the the joy of starting another scratch agency, what is one thing that you would do differently or advice you'd give to yourself for time number 4?
Yeah, God.
Usually everybody says, I'm not doing this a second time, but we're on time number 4 here.
Time number 4. Oh, God. I would probably to pick a niche. Start with something, be the expert of something, and be that person that everyone knows for it in that industry. I think that, I mean, we see it in the medical field, right? Generalist doctors don't make more money than specialists. Why don't we?
Right.
Why don't we get it? Why do agents continue to not do that? I just kind of have my hands tied, which I'm still working on a possible niche, but I think that would have been. I think that's what I would do. I would become an expert at one line or one industry and just dominate that space.
Yeah.
Probably what I would do, but I'm not doing it again. And I'm not going to do it in Florida if there's more.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. Why don't you tell everybody where they can get in touch with you if maybe someone wants to reach out, has any questions, or just follow along on your journey?
Bunkeryourrisk.com is my website. I am on Instagram as Bunker Your Risk. Bunker Your Risk. My email is ciara@bunkeryourrisk.com. My LinkedIn is my name, Ciara Gravier. Facebook, Ciara Gravier Hagopian, my married name. But yeah, I'm kind of easy to be found all over the socials.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, for people that are listening, make sure you do follow her, because like Shawn said, when we started, the branding and everything is impressive, and you can certainly take some nuggets out of that and learn some stuff for yourself. So appreciate you taking the time.
You guys are killing it too. You guys, I think that we're collectively making a difference here with what the agent looks like, and I love it. And I love it, and I'm glad to be doing it with you guys, because I think we're going to accelerate the change.
For sure. Oh, right back at you. Absolutely. So thanks again for taking the time. Everybody, that is another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thank you for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening or watching that episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. We really hope you enjoyed it, and we hope to see you next time. If you have any questions, you could reach out to myself or Stephen on Instagram or LinkedIn.